All right, Vibe Tunes Radio faithful. Are you ready? I know I sure as hell am. We got right now joining me via phone, we got Skully from Seasons of the Wolf. First of all, I just want to say, buddy, thank you for taking the time to come on air today with me. This is actually my first interview that I've been doing in the 5 years of being part of the online radio community. So I'm honored, thrilled to have you on, bud. How are you doing today?
Cool, man. Good to be here. Yeah, I just noticed you played Fire by Arthur Brown. It's
Yeah.
been a while since I've heard that.
Oh wow, yeah, I got a lot of hidden gems in the collection. Some many have heard of, some a lot of people have not heard of, surprisingly. But every once in a while, I'll pull out something deep like that just to get the blood going and get the hey, I remember that. Surprisingly, I gotta say, I didn't even know who Seasons of the Wolf was until I actually joined Vibe Tunes earlier this year, and you guys have me hooked. You guys are just freaking phenomenal. I noticed that you guys actually are almost as old as I am. You guys started in 1988, I saw?
Right. Actually, it's October, and this is 36 years, man.
Oh wow, 36 years. That's yeah.
October 1988 is when the band started, and here we are, October 2024. That's 36 years.
Damn, yeah, I was born in 86, so that's cool. So how'd you guys come about? How'd you guys form?
Well, I had been in many bands. This band started when I was right around, I was just getting ready to turn 28. I had been in a lot of other bands before, and my brother had just gotten out of high school when this band started, and we were auditioning singers, and he gave me a ride to practice one night because my van broke down, and we were auditioning some singers, and none of them really worked out. And he said, "Hey, I'd like to try." And so that's how he got in the band. He jumped up and he did a great job. And I said, "Hey, man, you want to join the band?" And he said, "Yeah." So our first actual bass player and drummer were only a couple of friends that were helping us out. Dr. Samurai's the keyboard player,
Okay.
and he and I the one that actually started the band. And we hooked up with a bass player and drummer friends from other bands to get things rolling and audition singers with no intentions of them actually staying in the band. So when it came to finding a bass player and drummer, we got kind of lucky on that because during that October that year, 1988, we just happened to come to the studio one night, and the next door warehouse to us was a paint shop, and there was bass and drums coming from the paint shop. And so we climbed up on top of the office part of and we could see down inside the other warehouse. And sure enough, here's a bass player and drummer down there jamming, and they sound pretty good.
Oh,
So
cool.
we just, yeah, so we didn't have to look far. We just walked next door and said, "Hey guys, you want to come over and jam with us?" And they said, "Yeah," and there you go.
Nothing
It
wrong with
ended
that.
up working out. Those guys were the bass player and drummer that was on the first couple of albums that we recorded back in 88, 89, and 90. They didn't last, but that's how we got started. After that, we ended up hooking up with Pedro on bass, and then we ended up getting Wayne Hopeful on drums, and that situation ended up carrying us through about the next 10 years.
Okay.
And that's really when we got busy.
Nice. Nice,
So
nice.
I'd say around 1992 is when we started to get real busy and get serious about it.
Cool deal. Cool deal. Yeah, I did notice that Wes was a longtime member of the band, like from those initial demos right up until Last Act of Defiance came out. Very unique vocal
Right,
style.
right. Yeah, he had just gotten out of high school in 1988, like I said, mentioned before, and yeah, he lasted in the band for 20 years. But then, things got dicey in his life. He ended up making some bad choices and hanging with some of the wrong people, I guess, and he ended up kind of getting a little addiction going on there, and that kind of ruined it for him. But he was very, very good and very loyal.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, from 1988, he lasted until 2008. So I mean, in those 20 years, we did quite a bit, and that was probably the most successful time of the band was during the 90s all the way up to around 2008 when he, kind of, well, I'd say maybe quit and got fired at the same time. I don't know.
Interesting, interesting.
It's
So
kind
like,
of sad because he kind of,
yeah.
addiction and everything and making some bad choices. It ended up catching up with him. And, that'll ruin a singer, you know.
Oh yeah, well,
To be a front man for a band and keep your voice going really, keep those pipes going good, you got to stay on top of your health. And going down the wrong path with alcohol or drugs can really, damage it. It's kind of like the same thing that happened with Paul Deanna from
oh
Iron Maiden,
yeah.
in the early days. That's one of the reasons that they parted ways because Paul back then had a real serious, he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, I heard that.
And it really started to become a problem. And so the band, needed to move on. And they did.
Yeah. So like, who are some of the bands that influenced Seasons of the Wolf?
Well, I'd say after, it was like a lot of bands, a hell of a lot of bands out of the 70s, 60s and 70s, and maybe early 80s. You know, I'd say narrowing it down to say the top five most influential bands was early Black Sabbath,
Okay.
definitely Blue Oyster Cult,
All right.
most definitely Blue Oyster Cult because of the keyboards. Iron Maiden, a
Okay.
lot of the early Iron Maiden, as far as our speed on some songs, when it comes to the speedier songs. Some of the slower mid-tempo songs that are a little doomier sounding, probably the early Black Sabbath, and then of course Blue Oyster Cult with the keyboards. And Thin Lizzy, that's another one that
Okay.
is a heavy influence. And I'd say probably Montrose,
All right.
uh, and specifically the Montrose during the Gamma days.
Oh
If
yeah.
you
Wow.
remember his next band called Gamma, Gamma 1, Gamma 2, Gamma 3. So yeah, those, and Deep Purple. I can't leave out Deep Purple. So that'll, a
All
lot
right.
of the early Deep Purple, of course.
Yeah. Like I remember first time I actually heard you guys. I was actually cutting the grass and you guys came up on my Spotify and like I got some like early like deep new wave of British heavy metal vibes from you guys when I first heard it before I realized holy crap, this is Seasons of the Wolf, but yeah, I can definitely see like all those bands that you mentioned. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah,
like
and it's never one specific thing. I mean, when we write a new riff and end up turning it into a song, or we end up writing some lyrics and making it fit into music that we've already written, it's never geared that it's going to be one thing or another. It just kind of happens to go, oh, okay, that sounds like something that Deep Purple, might have came up with the Hammond B3 organ and stuff like that in the part. Or if it gets a little doomier, that another particular song might have more of a Black Sabbath edge. And then sometimes it goes back and forth. You could actually hear one of our songs and hear elements of 5 or 6 different band influences in that song. But as far as lyrically go, song per song, we just never sound exactly the same. We usually try to, I don't know, it just comes out being a little more diverse, like a roller coaster ride, which, is also an influence from those early albums and those early bands coming out of the 70s, the way they used to, do an album, a full album, you know, a little atmospheric on one song, a little more heavy hitting and straightforward on another song, and then maybe a mixture of the two on another song. So yeah, we usually try to be fairly diverse and dynamic in our writing.
Yeah, I can definitely see that because each song I've listened to, not one song sounds the same. They all sound very eclectic, very diverse. It's just comes together for the perfect mixture.
Occasionally, we'll stumble on something that sounds like in a set list for a live set list that we shouldn't put two songs together, real close in the set list. An example of that is our earliest, most popular song that came out. We wrote it in 1992, but by the time we got around to recording it, it was 1994, and of course, by the time we were releasing it back in the early days and getting our record label up and running and everything. But anyway, when it finally came out, October Moon. And October Moon is probably our underground hit. It really did well in college radio. And then a few years later, we released the Lost in Hell album and the title track Lost in Hell. And there is a similarity in the dynamics of the guitar riff or whatever in both of those songs, although neither one of those songs actually sound alike, but there is a similar thing going on. So when we play those songs live, we separate them. we don't have many songs like that, but those are probably the closest two sounding riffs that sound similar to each other. So we always put some space in between those when we play them live.
Awesome, yeah. So I have to ask you this one question, dude. You got any fun tour stories?
What's that?
Do you got any fun tour stories, any fun road stories?
Oh, fun road stories. I mean, or just completely Twilight Zone bizarre Spinal Tap moments. I mean, those are. You're familiar with Spinal Tap, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, but I mean, the reality of things out there when you're, doing shows and the situations you run into sometimes are even beyond Spinal Tap. You just shake your head and you can't, wow. If people could see that in a movie, they would just laugh their ass off because there was one scene in Spinal Tap where the guys are getting ready to do a gig, and they're going down these long hallways and opening up the door, and then there's a janitor standing there, and then they finally find this door, and then they go down another hallway, and they're trying to make their way to the stage, and it's it takes these guys a half an hour to go through all these tunnels and different doors and openings to try to find the stage. Well, we actually had a situation like that once.
Oh, man.
The load-in dock and the dressing room were at the total end of this building, but the stage is all the way mostly towards the middle or almost the other end of the building. And we actually, in the middle of it, we're going down a long hallway. We're opening up a closet door. We're going here. Okay. Here's another hallway. And we all started laughing and goes, damn, this is freaking Spinal Tap.
Oh my God.
And of course we've had other, highlighted moments. I mean, we did get to open up for Blue Oyster Cult back in 1992. and we ran into a situation where they were actually going to cancel that night because the stage was not set up according to their contract.
Oh boy.
And I just happened to, we were there already, starting to set up our stuff and bring it in. And some of their road crew was up on stage, plus their manager. He was sitting at the bar arguing with the bar owner, the club owner, about the situation and saying, hey, you know, we're going to have to cancel because the contract stipulates this amount of stage space and you don't have it. And if, you know, he said the only way to do that is if you move those PA cabinets or whatever down off the stage so that there's more room. I mean, some of these major bands that's been around a while, they require a specific thing, and it's in a contract rider, you know. So the club needs to appease by the contract. So, you know, if they can still get paid and not have to play, then might actually happen in some certain situations. I just happen to be sitting at the end of the bar having a beer, and I'm hearing this go on. So I was like, oh, crap, man. If they don't play, that means we won't get to open up for Bluish or Cold, you know. And it's like, this is going to suck. And so I made my way down to the end of the bar, and I said, excuse me, I'm just this little peon in an opening band tonight. But we would really like to open up for Blue Oyster Cult. We're very much looking forward to it because they're one of our, you know, influences, big influences. And I've met the guys before that. But I said, look, we can solve the situation. Our studio is only about 5 miles down the road because it was a local situation. And I said, within the next 15 or 20 minutes, I can bring in some extra stage pieces. I can have them here, and we can help move those cabinets off the stage to give the amount of space that you're required. And Blue Oyster Cult's stage manager looked at me and he says, all right, you got 20 minutes. So I said, Aaron, grab the truck, get to the studio, bring those stage pieces. I mean, it was boom, 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 and we had it there. We got our equipment off and everything, and the stage manager said, you know, he gave us a thumbs up, and he says, okay, we're good to go. So we got to open up for Blue Oyster Cult, but we had to bust our ass to get it done.
Oh, wow. Hard work pays off.
So, I mean, and it was fun. The whole thing was, at the time, it was a little stressful, but, you know, we pulled it off. So we've always been that kind of band that would do whatever it takes to make sure the show goes on, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And, of course, some of the debauchery that surrounds a band, we've been through that kind of stuff, you know, at certain gigs with people, you know, drunk people, you know, people going absolutely crazy, you know, women back in the 90s coming out of the 80s and stuff, you know, women at shows get a little excited and everything, and they're taking off their tops. So some of them are jumping up on tables, dancing naked and stuff, and they get thrown out of the bar. All kinds of, I can't even mention all the things that went on, but I'm sure you can imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the stuff they make fun of and people think it is, isn't all the time. It's not all the time like that, but occasionally people do go off the hook a little bit, you know, and it gets pretty surreal, like you're in a twilight zone, like, wow, is this really happening?
Yeah. Crazy. So I was actually noticing when I was looking you guys up on the Encyclopedia Metallum website. So there's a band apparently called Equinox that you played with too.
Right, Equinox.
Yep.
I had originally formed Equinox back, well, actually it was my first band that I formed playing originals.
Okay.
When I lived in Virginia.
Oh.
This goes back to 1974. I was 14 years old. And we played a couple of parties and we had fun, and more or less we stuck to originals. We were always just making up our own stuff and playing, and then I moved to Florida, and of course that band was no more after I moved to Florida. But what happened, after being in several other bands, I ended up running into some guys that were really good, and that's where I started being a singer. I laid down my guitar for a while because I found another guitar player, bass player, and drummer that were really good. They just didn't really have what it took. They weren't songwriters. They were basically coming up with some really cool riffs and this and that. So I joined them as a singer and started writing lyrics and, putting a beginning and taking their riffs and forming them into songs. And we ended up calling that band Equinox as well. So that was my second Equinox, and that was around 1984. That band lasted about 5 years and is actually what Seasons of the Wolf became after that was leftover from Equinox. I decided to drop the name and change it, because that band, people started leaving the band, and we were going through some problems, and the keyboard player quit Equinox and moved out to California. And we decided, a good friend of mine, Dennis, he had just started learning to play keyboards, and he jumped in Equinox, and then Equinox ended up breaking up, and me and the keyboard player ended up forming Seasons of the Wolf. So some of the first Seasons of the Wolf songs on those first couple of albums we put out were actually Equinox songs before they were Seasons of the Wolf songs.
Oh, cool. Nice, nice. So I actually wanted to ask you a question too about the new album, Orna Verum. So how did you guys ended up getting Robert Von Baxter?
Well, my brother had, like I said, back in 2008, we had the problems with that. Although he had finished, we were getting ready to put out another album, and we wanted to put it out. It was supposed to come out in 2012.
Okay.
If things hadn't gone down the way they went. But he had already finished the vocals on half of the album. Never got around to finishing the rest of it. And we were giving him some time, too, with his problem. After 20 years of being together, we figured, okay, let's give him let's give him some time.
Yeah.
We owe him that for so much dedication of being in the band for 20 years. Let's just put this on the back burner and give him some time to maybe sort his shit out.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. We waited a couple of years and it just got worse and more disconnected. So I decided to finish the rest of the album myself because I had been a lead vocal in Equinox. And so I went ahead and finished the rest of the songs, and that's what made up the last act of Defiance, even though it came out way later than we had wanted it to, but we did manage to get that album finally out in 2018. During that time, though, we were also auditioning new singers, and probably a couple of dozen really good guys, but none of them had the same kind of character quality I was looking for in order for them to step in and replace my brother, Wes, until we found Robert Baxter. And he worked out really well. He wasn't, let's say, the most experienced as far as training. So during the time we released Last Act of Defiance, which would be the last album that my brother was on, I spent a couple of years, and Robert working with him on new material and bringing him into the studio and recording, and he learned over the course of that 2 years to develop his voice a little bit more, writing and recording one song at a time in order to make Orna Verum. Then, of course, we finally got that out with him on it that was this year, back in April.
Nice. Yeah. Very awesome album, by the way. definitely stands on its own, I feel. So, also wanted to ask you, I noticed you also play with another band too, Twisted World. How did that come about?
Well, I run it's like a half recording studio and rehearsal studio. Back in 2008, I mean, Seasons of the Wolf doesn't practice here 5 days a week like we used to. I mean, back in the early days, this place was all about Seasons of the Wolf. Our equipment was always set up on stage, and we were always practicing 4 to 5 nights a week and gigging, and it was just a complete operation. But after putting out, you know, a good handful of albums and band members not living in the same town anymore, uh, it wasn't necessary for us to get together and practice that much all the time anymore. And so that left this place kind of open, and I wanted to hold on to it. So what I did is I opened it up to other bands to actually rent the stage out and everything. I turned it into a little business to make extra money, to keep the studio going. So bands would come in, like cover bands from around the local area and some original bands. They'd come in and I'd charge them $50 for like a 5-hour practice to set up on a real stage with lights and the smoke machine and all that kind of stuff and a sound system I have here. And in the meantime, I met a lot of great people in other bands. And Ken Kurt came along and wanted me to play drums with him. And so I did. And so he could help him arrange some of his material as a producer. I do that. He had a lot of material and lyrics. And he put out one solo album just called Kurt, but he wanted a full band. And it took us a while to find a singer, which Alex came along eventually. And then just most recently, we got Shelby in the band. And it turned into a full band, and we decided to call it Twisted World. And so already by the time Shelby came in, we already had like 35 songs written. Haven't even put out a full album yet, but we've released probably 7 or 8 singles in the last 2 to 3 years, and we're gearing up to pull a full album out, obviously.
Cool. Cool deal, cool deal. Alright, so that actually explained for my next question, but what else is in store for fans of both bands? Like, can we see you guys on tour?
That's hard to say. I mean, the way things are in the music business at the moment and have been for the past couple of years,
Yeah.
Seasons of the Wolf obviously will be around doing. We're already working on another couple of albums right now.
Nice.
And that music will continue to come out. And as far as touring, that is a big question mark. Seasons of the Wolf is looking more for going over and playing some large festivals in Europe.
Oh.
And whatever might happen here in the USA as far as that goes, and occasionally maybe a local gig. But Seasons of the Wolf over the years is definitely a recording artist and will continue to put out new music until it's over with. And we don't know. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I do believe that, we got a couple of more albums in us. So we're just going to do that. And if the opportunities arise, the good opportunities for us to play larger shows, we will do that because that's what Seasons of the Wolf is now. Seasons of the Wolf isn't the band you're going to take down to your local bar and play anymore. We've been there, we've done that, we've built it up over the years to playing on at least a medium-sized nightclub to a theater-type stage, and we've even played larger than that, like a couple of civic centers. And so we're kind of used to playing on a large stage now. You can't really cram Seasons of the Wolf in the corner of a local bar and us be able to, pay all the guys and do anything adequate that's going to be a great presentation like we want to do for that particular band. So, anything we do is going to be something fairly large and decent. As far as Twisted World goes, though, that's a new band, and we actually went out and did our first gig at one of the smaller local bars, and that's kind of how we will build that. We will basically play a lot of local, smaller places to build up the band and continue to record and make music videos. We do have a YouTube page for Twisted World, and I think we got seven music videos released on that so far. And basically do the whole routine of PR and sending out to radio and taking as many opportunities as we can, small or large, for that particular band so we can build it. So that's kind of like what I'm doing right now is I'm playing in one very established band that's been around a long time that requires a certain thing, and then the other band, more of a new, younger band that doesn't require as much right now, and will take whatever we can get as far as some small gigs to build the name up more.
Heck yeah, definitely, to build that brand up, man. You know, and speaking of building brands, thank you for being so supportive of Vibe Tunes Radio. I mean, we just got off the ground, obviously, at the beginning of the year. So what do you think of us so far?
Oh, it's doing great. You know, I told Kimono, you know, I've already known him by a couple of DJ names.
Yeah.
I originally met him coming into Castle Black.
Cut out when you were talking.
Oh yeah, are you back on now?
Yeah, I'm back on now, bud.
I don't even remember the question.
I was just asking about what you think of Vibe Tunes Radio so far.
Oh yeah, you guys are doing great. You know, I mean, that's the one thing is just hanging out. I was telling the story of how I met Kimono.
Yeah.
Through Castle Black, and he got. I did an interview with him there. I think it was his first interview or something that I did with him, and I think after that we did another one, and of course he ended up leaving and starting the Vibe Tunes, and then you know he just wanted to keep rolling with it. I said, well, that's the one thing, you're good at what you do. So find other people that are good at what they do, like you, and roll with it, man. You know, just don't get discouraged because it is tough. It's like today, me being able to bring more people into the chat room or listening, I have no idea because afternoons are a bit, especially during the week, afternoons can get a bit weird because a lot of people are working and a lot of people got other things going on. I've always had, as far as promotional wise, I've had an easier time bringing people in, obviously, at night. You know, there's like a prime time that more people would probably get involved after work, after dinner, or in between later hours and such like that. And especially the weekends and the afternoons and stuff, if they're chilling out, you know, to tune in. So,
yeah, totally.
It's something you just got to keep going at, though, man, and keep advertising and trying to reel as many people in as possible because it is the new way.
Exactly.
Mainstream radio is slowly fading away, and internet radio is slowly becoming the thing to do because there's more personal connection that way, and also the DJs like you are playing more of a variety of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially like you said, it's all about, you know, getting out there. Thank God for, you know, like Spotify. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for being able to post through other social media sites like, you know, Facebook, TikTok, things like that. Helps not only get the band's name out, but it helps get the station's name out as well, too.
Right. It has to be a two-way thing, you know. I often am shocked that a lot of bands are not taking care of those that are taking care of them. you know, like
Yeah.
helping to promote the station that they're being played on. That's something that I put a lot of effort into. If somebody is playing our music and they're liking it, then I'm going to do as much as I possibly can to advertise that. Why wouldn't I? But a lot of musicians' work ethics are not that way.
Yeah.
You would think they would be. You know, they're always crying and complaining about, how do you get an airplay or this and that. Well, if you do get some airplay, make sure you really take care of those people. You know,
Oh yeah.
if they ask to do an interview, take the time to do the interview. Uh, and advertise the hell out of it by any means necessary.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why That's why I'm thankful that you actually helped advertise. I'm like, holy crow, this is awesome. He's helping advertise, and then VibeTunes helping advertise, and then I'm helping. It's like win, win, win all
Well,
across the
and
board.
you guys are putting together a good team already because there are some people like me that will promote you and keep that going. Like the guys from Gravehopper and Crojack. And I could probably mention a few other bands I can't remember off the top, but I know those bands are doing the same thing. You know, you guys are playing them, and they are actually promoting that fact.
Yeah, I definitely notice that, especially with bands like Crojack. Like they'll always be like all over, be like, "Hey, we just got played, from this," and it's like not just our station, it's the other stations too. And it's like
Yeah,
that's
everybody. Take care of everybody to take care of you. I
exactly.
know there's a lot of competition sometimes between certain internet radio stations, trying to do better. That's always going to be there. There's always going to be somebody trying to outdo you or this or that. It is competitive, no matter whether or not people think it should be competitive. The fact is competitive. Music business, it's entertainment, and one band is going to try to do better than the other band, write better songs, put on better shows. Same thing with radio, same thing with sports. I mean, it's it's a competitive world, especially when it comes to the entertainment business. You
Yeah.
know, and everybody should just accept that, but also help promote each other. Don't like take a complete total attitude towards it, because if you can get a whole bunch of internet radio stations that actually are helping promote each other, like one guy might have a really big name and is established and been around for a while and doing really well. Well, it would be to their benefit to actually help some other newbies, some newcomers, because they're just going to that's going to lift them up further, you know,
Oh yeah.
is by helping other people.
Exactly. Exactly, man. Well, I actually want to say thank you very much once again for coming on and actually talking to me, boy. I appreciate it. This was awesome for me.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for the opportunity, man.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I'm glad we had you on, and we'll definitely have to have you on again sometime in the near future too.
Good, good. Well, yeah, we'll do it, man.
Yeah,
Maybe a special midnight show if we're both not too wiped out.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, actually, and if you did a later evening type show, I might be able to bring more people, like get some people in the chat room and have more people tune in. It's just really tough to do on a Tuesday afternoon, because especially with a lot of the people I know in the local area here right now,
yeah.
we just come out of going through two storms, and there's still a lot of cleanup going on, and people are stressed out. A lot of people lost their homes. Robert Baxter, we were talking about him earlier, uh, the new singer for Seasons of the Wolf, him and his wife lost their home.
Oh
You
wow,
know, so,
damn.
they're just now starting to get some help and everything out of FEMA to put them up and everything. But this is it's been a couple of a couple of days after a storm like that, if you lose everything, a couple of days seems like an eternity, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, the plants will align for me to do a night show at some point in the near future. You never know. I guess that's the one thing about LR that's for sure is nothing's for sure, you know. But,
Right.
but
Well, you're doing good, man. And just like if you do get the opportunity to do that, let me know and we'll plan it out. Maybe it can just be a special one off type thing that we do in the evening, you know, like on a Friday or a Saturday evening. And let me know a couple of weeks ahead of time and I'll make sure to promote the hell out of it
awesome.
and probably bring in some new listeners.
Cool deal, cool deal. Well, thank you once again for coming on, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care. You have a good afternoon.
Yeah, you too, man. Take it easy.
All right.
That right there was Skully with Seasons of the Wolf. Thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.